No matter how loud she screamed, no one could hear her. I felt like if I could just yell loud enough that someone could hear me or see me, Angela recalled. I will preface this story by telling you that Angela, only through sheer determination and unwillingness to give up, somehow survived this horrible experience. But I'm getting ahead of myself just a tad, so let's back things up a little bit. It was July 2018, and boy, was it a beautiful day in California. Angela Hernandez, who was 22 years old at the time, was driving her Jeep Patriot down Highway 1. She was on her way home, heading to Southern California, and honestly, it had been a pretty average day so far. As Angela came up to the famous Big Sur coastline, a small animal darted across the road. Being the animal lover she was, Angela swerved to avoid hitting it. Little did she know, this small act of kindness was about to have a big impact on her life, especially the next 7 days. As Angela swerved, she lost all control of her Jeep. Before she could realize what was even happening, her Jeep went over the edge of the road. Angela was now airborne, plummeting down after falling off the cliff. 200 to 250 feet later, Angela's Jeep landed and was partially submerged in the water. Angela later said, "I don't really remember much of the fall. The only thing I really remember after that was waking up. I was still in my car and I could feel water rising over my knees. My head hurt when I touched it. I found blood on my hands." Her car no longer had power. The rising waters were to blame. Every inch of her body hurt. All she could think about was her sister, and she began to scream her name. Her windows were rolled up because what felt like only moments ago she had the AC blasting. How inconvenient now. Angela began looking around her Jeep, furiously scanning for anything that might be of use. That's when it dawned on her. She always kept a toolkit near her front seat. She grabbed it and was able to break the driver's side window, crawl out of the car, and into the ocean. Somehow she made it to shore and then fell asleep, probably from exhaustion. Angela doesn't know how long she lay there on the beach. Couldn't have been too long because when she woke up it was still daylight. Now, up to this point, Angela hadn't tried getting up at all. This would be the moment when she would finally realize the severity of everything that had just happened. Angela later said, "I stood up onto my feet and noticed a huge pain in my shoulders, hips, back, and thighs. I saw nothing but rocks, the ocean, and a cliff that I knew I would never be able to look over." Angela had some serious injuries, some of which she wouldn't even know about until she reached the hospital an entire week later. Crashing her Jeep had caused a brain hemorrhage, 6 broken bones, and a collapsed lung. Angela could see her car. The roof had been completely ripped off of it. She knew she kept a gallon of water in it for emergencies. She just never thought it would be one as bad as this. She tried to get to her car for some water, but she was unable to reach it. Angela said that the days between the crash and her rescue were all really a big blur. She recalls walking the beach, searching for people. To avoid the sharp sand, she would climb rocks. Her shoes had gotten lost at some point during the crash. When the rocks would get too hot from the sun, she would walk along the shore. She found a high spot where she could climb to in hopes of catching the attention of cars driving across the highway. She was up on the cliff, and she managed to climb up there every day. She would sit up there until the sun became unbearably hot. Angela could see traffic constantly whizzing by, but no one could see her. She could always hear the traffic too, but no matter how loud she screamed, no one could hear her. I felt like if I could just yell loud enough that someone could hear me or see me, Angela recalled. By day 3, Angela began feeling the effects of dehydration. By this point, her socks were nothing but holes, and even her jeans were hanging on by a thread. Pun intended. Angela decided she had to try reaching her Jeep to salvage anything she could use to survive. She was able to get a few things from her Jeep, including her sweater that she just so conveniently happened to keep a 10-inch radiator hose in. Why? I honestly have no clue, and Angela never did explain this part. Anywho, she took this hose and used it to siphon fresh water that was dripping down the cliffs due to a natural spring that was up a bit further. Angela said that every day this became her ritual. I'd walk up and down the beach looking for new high grounds, screaming help at the top of my lungs and collecting water falling from the top of the cliffs. Every night, I'd find the highest point I could climb up to and find somewhere to fall asleep before the tide would rise. Every morning, I'd wake up soaked in sea mist and watch the sun rise. Days kept passing. Angela was getting more hungry, but at least she had her water now. She said things never did get easier for her, only more predictable. Songs she hadn't heard in years would play on repeat non-stop in her head. She would dream of food. Oh, the food. Steamy, warm, and so very filling. She would ponder what she would eat first after being rescued and what her rescuers would look like. This hope she was constantly creating for herself was a huge factor in her survival, I believe. Knowing she would be rescued and that this wasn't the end for her. It was now night number 6. Angela dozed off to sleep only to be woken up by a pain in her shoulder. She remembers looking up and seeing the Big Dipper. It was almost peaceful. Almost. The morning of the 7th day was now upon her. She began walking her usual route and started looking at everything a little different. Her body was getting tired, though, and she dozed off in between 2 rocks. Eventually, Angela woke up. She rubbed her eyes and then rubbed them again in disbelief of what? What was she seeing? There was a woman. She was walking across shore. Her name was Chelsea Moore. Chad and Chelsea were surfers who happened to be on a hike that day when they noticed the wreckage of the Jeep and decided they better have a look around. Angela stated, "I screamed, 'Help!' And then I got up as quickly as I could and ran over to her. She was with a man, and I don't think they could believe their eyes. I couldn't believe that they were even real. I couldn't believe that we had finally found each other." The couple immediately called for help, and a rescue team was sent Angela's way. She was rushed to the hospital, where she was reunited with her family and, most important, her sister. She said, "I'm sitting here in the hospital, laughing with my sister until she makes my broken bones hurt. I have everything I've ever wanted." Angela would make a full recovery. Authorities later said Angela was found on part of a beach that is less heavily traveled because walking around the Big Sur is difficult even for a healthy, fit person. The mixture of her being off the beaten path and mixed with a lot of foggy weather after the crash made searching the 50 to 60 mile stretch of highway where Angela went missing very difficult. And truly, it was sheer luck that Chad and Chelsea found Angela. After some days recovering in the hospital, Angela said, "I've met some of the most beautiful human beings that I think I'll ever meet in my entire life. I can't imagine that there isn't a bigger purpose for me in this life. I don't know, you guys. Life is incredible." Yes, Angela, it sure is. And friends, that's all I have for today. So let me know if I missed anything or if you have a story you would like me to cover. Please smash that like button, subscribe, help rebuild up the channel. YouTube thinks that you would like this video, so check it out, and we'll see you later. Bye.